Alright guys, so this next Patreon request comes from Lamonta Benson, who asked me to talk about a top 10 list for top 10 worst worst costumes in comics. Not movies, from DC Comics directly. And, yeah, a lot of them are from the New 52 and 90s, go figure. And also a good chunk of them are Wonder Woman. My girl Diana gets played dirty a lot. Anyway, so as always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, hit the 3rd tier. That'll allow you access to check out all the other tiers, as well as allow you to send Patreon requests for me to do here on YouTube. But other than that, let's get started. So yeah, as with all top 10 lists, this is just my personal opinion. If you think a costume should be higher or lower, not at all the list, that's totally fine. This is just my opinion, and I'm always excited to hear yours. And like I said, you're going to see a lot of costumes from the New 52, the 90s, and Wonder Woman. I don't know what it is, but like there was a lot of god-awfulry. That's a word I'm making up now. There's a lot of shittery going on in those costumes in that era. But some of them might be interesting. Also, Nightfall Batman will not be on here. I kind of like it's so overproduced and so ugly. I kind of like it. Like, it's the embodiment, and also it's not Bruce's costume, it was Jean-Paul Valley's Batman costume. It's so overproduced and over the top, just like Jean-Paul was. I kind of like it. Also, Blue and Red Energy Superman aren't on here. They're not great stories, but it's kind of a neat era. It's kind of a neat time. It'll get an honorable mention for not being a good look. I'll say that. I'll give it an honorable mention for that one. But anyway, let's get started with the list. Starting off with not so much bad as it is boring. The New 52 Nightwing. New 52 Nightwing does nothing for me. It's probably the worst Nightwing costume. And yes, this is like when straight 80s popped up collar and, you know, overproduced gold highlights. That was kind of fun. Like, that screams Dick Grayson. Like, that 80s costume screams Dick Grayson of being flashy and also like, here I am, try to shoot me, asshole. But the New 52 Nightwing costume, the moment I saw it, I was like, that's boring. It's literally just the classic Nightwing costume with red instead. That's dumb. There's nothing here. As opposed to, like, a lot of the New 52 costumes that were trying to go over 90s, this one just screams, I had nothing better to do, I'll just make it red. And that was it. Anyway, so there you go. We're starting off with a boring pick. But now we move on to one I think will be a little more controversial for my number 9 pick. And this one might be a little derisive in the comments. That is Fear State Scarecrow costume. The Fear State Scarecrow costume, to me, screams anime villain than it does Scarecrow. I mean, yeah, he's got a gas mask, he's got long, like, spindly finger knives, and a weird Bushido haystack cloak. If this was a Batman anime, this would have been perfect. But, like, the straw hat and everything, this is a comic book, and he does nothing about that screams Scarecrow for a comic. None of that says Scarecrow to me. It's art, and Scarecrows has some pretty bad costumes in some cases. But, like, this is arguably one costume in the Fear State event where I was, like, looking at Scarecrow's costume, I was like, this is dumb. That is the dumbest design for Scarecrow I have seen. A lot of them, when you see a new Scarecrow costume, and arguably, Scarecrow probably gets the most redesigned costumes on a daily basis than any other villain in Batman's Rogues. Probably any villain ever, I would say. Because every time you see him, he's in a different... whenever you see Scarecrow, he's in a different costume 9 times out of 10. So, I do appreciate that they're always trying to change his costume, but a lot of them work. This time, this should have been in he looks like he walked out of goddamn Outlaw Star, right? It just doesn't fit. That's my problem with it, is that it just doesn't fit. And yes, I am looking down to remind myself of the list. Next up, New 52 Red Robin. What in the flying Falcon was that costume? Tim Drake's Red Robin costume is like everything else in the New 52, where it's like it's trying to be Image books, and I understand why, because goddamn Jim Lee tried to make everything like Image Comics in the early days of New 52. It's overcomplicated. The wings are dumb. Like, the wings make no sense. You can say, oh, but Falcon's costume had those wings. Yeah, but they were more proportionate tried to say that word, proportionate, and they actually had some use, whereas Red Robin's like New 52 costume, the wings are always down to the foot, and they're like way too big. Also, what was wrong with Tim Drake's original Red Robin costume? Yeah, it was originally used by Jason Todd, but like that one was pretty neat. It was sleek. Like I like that it has more of a covert feel. This is way too overproduced, as was a lot of the New 52 costumes. You're gonna see a lot of those on here. Anyway, so New 52 Red Robin. Next up, New 52 Harley Quinn. Once again, we go back to the whole thing of this feels too much like a 90s comic, and also, going back to the Image thing, this feels like early 90s like early New 52 books were really, really trying to over-sexualize a lot of their characters. And again, we go back to the whole problem I had with Fear State Scarecrow, was that it looks more like an anime character and more meant for like being made as a statue than it is to be practical in comics. Yeah, they have tried to fix the new Harley Quinn costume, and I'm not one of the. And while yes, I do like classic Harley Quinn costume, they have made the chalk white skin and the other forms work. Like they have made those work, but when it first came out, God, it was ugly as shit. This costume was like this overcomplication of Harley Quinn didn't need to happen. Anyway, so now we move on to J. Michael Straczynski's Wonder Woman costume. Now we're finally getting to the Wonder Woman costumes. J. Michael Straczynski's Wonder Woman costume is boring. It's boring and overcomplicated. Like, what's with the jacket? Like, he's taken JMS's costume, which I think was co-made by Jim Lee, was like a costume where it's overcomplicated and boring at the same time. Where it's like, we have jeans and a jacket, and it took the worst parts of the Wonder Woman comics and made them into something that is not appealing at all and uninteresting. And you may say, oh, because she's boobs. No, it's just, there's nothing about that says Wonder Woman or Amazon Warrior. All it says really is, I wanted to make Wonder Woman look different, so ta-da. And it fails at being interesting, really. Next up, speaking of Wonder Woman, 90s Wonder Woman from the Challenge of Artemis. From going to boring to way too 90s. This costume shows way too much skin, and also black is not a good those black leather costume. Yeah, that's not a good look for Diana. All that black leather stuff. She looks more like a dominatrix than an actual superhero. It's a bad look. I understand, for the story, Artemis was Wonder Woman at the time, so Diana had to, go rogue and whatnot, but I'm like, nothing about that says go rogue. It more says, I'm gonna go to the nearest sex dungeon and peg Steve Trevor. That's what it really says to me. Not to say I'm pretty sure Diana does peg Steve Trevor. I'm 90%, I'm 95% sure that's someone's Black Label book waiting to happen. Anyway. Next up, for our, we're now in the, we are now at the top 4. At number 4, Hunter Prey Superman. Yeah, Superman had a bad costume, and this is arguably his worst. It's, again, like I said with the Challenge of Artemis costume, this costume is way too overcomplicated. This costume is way too it's way too 90s. Superman has a head sock, he's got pouches, he's got a spear, and yes, he's fighting Doomsday. This is his big rematch with Doomsday. This was the sequel to Death of Superman, but this costume, he's got a unshaven beard, he's got crazy eyes. This comic, he looks more like Gambit cosplaying Superman than he does actually Superman. Thank God. The only saving grace was it was not a long story, but holy shit, that costume was bad. Anyway. Oh dear. Deary dear. Like I said, a lot of these costumes are New 52 and Wonder Woman costumes. We come now to New 52 Wonder Woman. This one, This one might get me, this one is, again, the problem I had with the JMS Wonder Woman, where it was way too boring, and also way too complicated. But it's on another level. Also, why does Diana need wrist blades like she's a goddamn member of the Assassin's Creed? I don't get it. I didn't like it. There's a lot of red that doesn't clash well with the blue. And red and blue are complementing colors, but this time around, it didn't work for me. And God, another Wonder Woman costume that I affectionately call the tracksuit Wonder Woman costume. This is an era of the 1960s, 70s era where Diana wore she was a member of the Jetsons. Where she wore this weird purple blouse with a white streak in it, and sometimes she would wear a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. looking tracksuit. It's really bad. It's so bad, DC Comics does not want to acknowledge it. It's that bad. It was a low point in Diana's life, and I swear to God, someone in Hanna-Barbera must have designed that costume, thinking they were making a character for the Archies. And DC just went, oh, okay, that's Wonder Woman. And the artist was like, wait, what? Yeah, so that was pretty fucking awful. It's so awful, 9 times out of 10, DC doesn't want you to remember... DC Comics doesn't want you to remember that costume. Yeah. And now, I've got two. We've got 2 costumes I want to bring up, because they're very much tied for number 1. New 52 Raven, that's going to be our 2.5. Because again, we fall under the whole thing of it's way too overcomplicated. It's also over-sexualized, and also a little too much on the furry side. It's not a good costume, and it's now, in fairness, the Marv Wolfman, who did do a Raven miniseries, he did bring that in as and explained it away. He did take that costume and make the classic Raven costume. But that first time when New 52 Raven costume showed up, I died inside, because I was like, one of my favorite, look how they massacred my girl. It was way too 90s, way too overcomplicated, way too sexual, and also they took the term Raven and made it way too much. That's the thing. But here's the thing. That's not the worst costume, in my opinion, in DC Comics. The worst one came in where else? The fucking 90s. And here's, in my opinion, the worst costume DC has ever done. The worst costume DC Comics has ever made was Guy Gardner's Warrior costume. If you don't know what that is, look that up real fast. You see it? You see that affront to God? It just screams DC's being desperate to get Image Comics readers, and why does he have a shirt, it's no shirt, he's a tatted up Florida man, which in hindsight, Guy Gardner could totally work as a Florida man, but I digress. But, he has no shirt, he's got weird, symbols on him, and he's just wearing pants. That's your costume. That is arguably, to me, it says, I read an issue of Wildcats and went, I can make that for Guy Gardner. That's really what it was. That's what it really says to me. So there you go, guys. Those are my worst costumes in DC Comics. Like I said, we're not using movies, we're just going with comics. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what are your 10 worst comic costumes in DC? Just comment below, let me know, and once again, I'd like to thank Lamont Benson for requesting this, and like I said before, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, hit the 3rd tier, and you guys will start sending request videos to do here on YouTube. Excuse me. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.